Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Newshour, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi returns home from a successful three-day visit to the US, says it covered diverse events aimed at making the planet better. Joe Biden addresses the UN for the last time as US President, says a diplomatic solution is still possible in the Lebanon-Israel war. Sri Lanka gets a woman Prime Minister. Professor Harini Amarasuriya is the third woman after Sirimao Bandaranaike and Chandrika Kumaratunga to become the Prime Minister of the island nation. And German carrier Lufthansa plans to suspend its Beijing routes, departing Frankfurt because of increased competition and rising operational costs. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has landed in New Delhi after concluding a three-day visit to the US. He attended the Summit of the Future at the United Nations in New York City and a Quad Leaders Summit as well. He also held some bilateral meetings. The high-level general debate of the 79th UN General Assembly session kicked off on Tuesday. This year's theme is Leaving No One Behind, Acting Together for the Advancement of Peace, Sustainable Development and Human Dignity for Present and Future Generations. The general debate is a key event of any UN General Assembly. Each UN member state is given 15 to 20 minutes to speak before the international community. As is tradition, Brazil's president was the first to take the podium, followed by US President Joe Biden. It'll be the last time Biden speaks at the UN General Debate as the US President. Over 6 days, a succession of world leaders will address the UN Assembly, laying out their national priorities and views on global affairs. And India's External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar will take part in the debate. In his final address to the United Nations General Assembly, as the US President, Joe Biden pushed for a deal between Israel and Hamas to end the conflict in Gaza.
Now is the time for the parties to finalize its terms, bring the hostages home, and secure security for Israel and Gaza free of Hamas' grip, ease the suffering in Gaza, and end this war.
West Asia is on edge as tensions between Israel and Hezbollah escalate, raising fears of a multi-front conflict. World leaders, meanwhile, are calling for restraint. More details in the next report.
Fears of a full-blown conflict in West Asia have risen many-fold as Israel and Lebanon's Hezbollah carry out attacks on each other. The hostilities have created a frenzy among civilians on both sides who are running for shelter. Calling the situation alarming, the UN has warned that tens of thousands of Lebanese will be displaced. The latest wave of attacks came after Israel carried out strikes on Hezbollah targets.
Based on precise intelligence, we conducted extensive strikes against Hezbollah terror targets in Lebanon that posed an imminent threat. The IDF struck 1,300 targets until now, including long-range cruise missiles, heavyweight rocket with 1,000-kilo warhead.
Hezbollah ramped up attacks on Israeli military sites, including an airfield, while Israel said that it struck the group's missile launchers and weapons storage facilities. The IDF has said that it will not give Hezbollah a break. As a precautionary measure, over 30 international flights to and from Beirut have been cancelled. Calls for calm have been increasing, with the White House saying that Joe Biden is committed to de-escalate tensions on Israel-Lebanon border while pushing for an Israel-Hamas deal.
Full-scale war is not in anyone's interest. Even if the situation has escalated, a diplomatic solution is still possible. In fact, it remains the only path to lasting security to allow the residents from both countries to return to their homes and the border safely. And that's what we're working tirelessly to achieve.
EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell has said that there's nearly a full-fledged war in Lebanon.
The catastrophe continues. And escalation in Lebanon is extremely dangerous and worrying. I can say that we are almost in a full-fledged war.
While the UN has called for diplomatic efforts to address the crisis. The strikes have increased pressure on Hezbollah, which last week suffered heavy losses when thousands of pagers used by its members exploded in the worst security breach in its history. A wider conflict also risks raising tensions between Israel's major ally US and Iran, which backs Hezbollah. Bureau Report, DD India.
Russia targeted a high-rise apartment building in Kharkiv on Tuesday using guided bombs. The attack resulted in at least 3 deaths and 15 injuries, with fears that more individuals may be trapped under the rubble. Earlier, Russia's air defense units destroyed 13 Ukrainian drones. 6 of them were intercepted over the Belgorod and Kursk regions, and 1 was downed over the Bryansk region. Meanwhile, Ukraine alleged that Russia launched 81 drones and 4 missiles in an overnight attack on its territory. Amid an electricity supply shortfall in Ukraine, the country's President Volodymyr Zelensky held discussions in the U.S. on Tuesday with executives from leading U.S. energy, finance and insurance companies. Zelensky is in the U.S. to present his quote-unquote victory plan. He says energy remains Ukraine's weakness.
Energy is not only about today, it's about tomorrow, but we have to prepare for heating season. Really, it's our weakness for today because energy network is under attacks each day. And of course, we did a lot with the help of partners, but it's been also internal questions of Ukraine. We did a lot how to decentralize the energy system.
U.S. President Joe Biden urged the United Nations to continue supporting Kyiv on Tuesday and said Putin's war has failed. Biden was addressing the UN leaders for the last time as the U.S. president.
The good news is Putin's war has failed. And at his core aim. He set out to destroy Ukraine, but Ukraine is still free. He set out to weaken NATO, but NATO is bigger, stronger, and more united than ever before, with 2 new members, Finland and Sweden. But we cannot let up.
And talking about the U.S., the country is gearing up for the 5th November presidential election. Will the U.S. elect its first woman president in Kamala Harris, or will Donald Trump win for a second time? DD India's Deeptantu Kashyap reports.
As U.S. presidential candidates seek an advantage with early voting underway in several states, incumbent Vice President Kamala Harris is leading against former President Donald Trump in 2 national polls released on Sunday. With polls tightening, Harris has called for another debate, which Trump declined, citing the start of early voting.
Together, we will build a future where we build what I call an opportunity economy. So every American has the opportunity to own a home, to build wealth, to start a small business. Now, Donald Trump, well, he has a different plan. And in many ways, you've heard me say before, he is an unserious man. But the consequences of putting him back in the White House are extremely serious.
Trump slammed Harris for inflation, warning that the country will blow up if she wins.
We're going to win the election. We're going to turn the country around. We're going to get energy prices way down. That's going to bring other prices way down.
Meanwhile, Georgia's Republican-leaning electoral board has approved counties in the southern U.S. states to hand count all election ballots.
That what we're doing is creating more stability in our election process. We're also putting our county board members in position to certify with confidence, since that's the big concern. And again, we're counting election day only ballots.
Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump remain deadlocked in the final run-up to the November 5th US presidential election, according to a recent poll that also shows a tight race in Pennsylvania. While the 7 swing states will decide the election results, the two candidates continue to rally in the state of Pennsylvania. Deeptanshu Kashyap's report for DD India.
Across the Atlantic in Europe, German flag carrier Lufthansa is facing difficult times. The airline is complaining about the cost of doing business, and it's even cut one important route from Frankfurt to Beijing. Lufthansa plans to suspend its Beijing routes departing Frankfurt Airport. The reasons are competition from China and other countries, as well as stricter European framework conditions. As per reports, Lufthansa will in all likelihood suspend its flights from Frankfurt to Beijing. And Lars Holter is with Deutsche Welle and he joins me from Berlin. Lars, what's going on at Lufthansa?
Thanks for having me. Well, let's look at that flight from Frankfurt to Berlin first that you just mentioned. Lufthansa has cut it, and there's a bunch of reasons for this step. First of all, the China business has been difficult for a while. Then came COVID and cuts drastically into air travel. Now, tourism has largely bounced back, but business travel has not. And for Germans, China has never been a major tourism destination. So most of the passengers Lufthansa flew back and forth between Frankfurt and Beijing were business travelers. Now that many businesses have switched from in-person meetings to online meetings, demand for the flight is simply shrinking. And there's also a few other problems. Ever since the EU has levied sanctions on Russia over Moscow's war in Ukraine, of course, Russia has closed off its airspace, forcing Lufthansa to fly a 2-hour detour and burn a lot more fuel than some competitors actually, like Emirates, Etihad and Qatar Airways do, because those airlines can still fly over Russia. So it seems right now, between rising cost and less demand, the route is not worth it for Lufthansa.
Also, Lars, how is Lufthansa doing outside this particular Chinese market?
Yeah, not too well either. And again, it's not just company problems. Lufthansa, just like other airlines, have long complained about the high cost of flying from and to German airports. I've actually just come upon a list of fees and taxes that airlines have to pay for their slots at different airports in Europe. And with just around 4,400 euros per flight, that would be in this case for an A320, the airports in Frankfurt, Stuttgart and Düsseldorf are the most expensive airports on the entire continent. Vienna and Paris aren't exactly cheap either, but they're over 1,000 euros cheaper than German airports. Rome comes in at half the price, and other smaller markets often just charge a fraction. Now, an airline like Lufthansa, with its major hub in Frankfurt, is of course disproportionately affected by such high rates. Add to that the high cost of getting flights more climate friendly through the growing use of sustainable aviation fuels, and you have a serious problem for the entire sector.
Lars, thank you. Appreciate it. Lars Holter reporting there from Berlin. And still to come on DD India News Hour. A look back at the Indian Prime Minister's three-day visit to the US.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India. Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity.
You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi had a successful and substantial visit to the US. DD India's Amritpal Singh puts the visit in its proper context for you. Right, we'll get you the latest from the US in just a bit, where my colleagues Amritpal Singh and Shubhendu Ghosh have covered extensively over the last many days the visit of the Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, to the US, where he addressed a summit of the future in New York City at the UN, also held a bilateral with President Biden and others during his visit there.
It was a hectic 56-hour visit. One that's being described as fruitful and substantial. The Prime Minister had a host of engagements. Participation in the 4th in-person Quad Leaders Summit in Delaware, addressed the United Nations at the Summit of the Future, also held key bilateral meetings, including the ones with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and US President Joe Biden.
The visit began with Prime Minister Modi receiving a warm welcome as he landed at the Philadelphia airport on Saturday. He later interacted with the Indian community on his arrival in Delaware. His first engagement was a bilateral meeting with US President Joe Biden at his home in Greenville, Delaware. Describing the meeting, which lasted over an hour, the Prime Minister said their talks were extremely fruitful. He wrote on X, and I quote, "We had the opportunity to discuss regional and global issues during the meeting." Later in the day, Prime Minister Modi attended the Quad Summit hosted by President Joe Biden in Wilmington, Delaware. Prime Minister Modi said that the Quad leaders had gathered during a time of global tensions, emphasizing that their collaboration is important for all of humanity.
हमारी बैठक ऐसे समय हो रही है जब विश्व तनावों और संघर्षों से घिरा हुआ है। ऐसे में साझा डेमोक्रेटिक वैल्यूज के आधार पर क्वाड का मिलकर साथ चलना पूरी मानवता के लिए बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण है।
Partnerships like the Quad are crucial, providing us with an avenue to discuss shared responsibilities and goals and strengthening the enduring relationships necessary for lasting stability.
The Quad leaders also announced the Quad Cancer Moonshot, a partnership aimed at combating cervical cancer in the Indo-Pacific. On the sidelines, the Prime Minister held a pull-aside meeting with Australian and Japanese counterparts. On Sunday, Prime Minister Modi addressed a gathering of over 13,000 Indian Americans at the Long Island in New York. Describing India as a land of opportunities, Prime Minister Modi shared his ambitious goals for the nation during his third term.
भारत आज लैंड ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटीज है। बीते 10 साल में भारत ने हर सेक्टर में अपॉर्चुनिटीज का एक नया लॉन्चिंग पैड तैयार किया है।
Prime Minister Modi also announced the opening of 2 new consulates in Boston and Los Angeles, addressing a long-standing demand of the Indian American community in these major cities. Later in the day, he interacted with top CEOs from the tech sector at a roundtable in New York. Prime Minister Narendra Modi provided them assurances regarding India's unwavering commitment to safeguarding intellectual property rights and nurturing tech innovation. On the last day of his US visit, Prime Minister Modi addressed the UN Summit of the Future at the United Nations headquarters in New York.
Success of humanity lies in our collective strength, not in the battlefield.
The Prime Minister also held several bilateral meetings with world leaders, the key ones with President Mahmoud Abbas of Palestine and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
Be in his meeting with President Zelensky or his address at the UN, even at the Quad Leaders Summit, the Prime Minister reiterated India's long-held position that resolution to global conflicts can only be found through dialogue and diplomacy, sitting across the table, not on the battlefield. With cameraman Sanjay Jena, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India in New York.
And Shubhendu Ghosh sent us this report from New York, in which he highlights major takeaways from the Prime Minister's US visit.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi concluded his historic visit to the United States in a packed tour that lasted around 50 hours. India's vision and engagement was furthered in diverse domains. First, the Quad Leader Summit. Prime Minister Modi participated in the 6th Quad Leader Summit in Wilmington, Delaware, hosted by US President Joe Biden. Leaders of Australia and Japan also participated. Some of the big takeaways included the Quad Cancer Moonshot, a groundbreaking partnership to save lives in the Indo-Pacific region by combating cervical cancer, first ever Quad at Sea ship observer mission, cooperation in semiconductor supply chain and more. The next Leader Summit will be hosted by India in 2025. Second, the Summit of the Future. PM Modi addressed the Summit of the Future at the 79th United Nations General Assembly in New York. He gave a clarion call for reform, saying that global action must match global ambitions. His intervention defined the fundamental course correction needed for a sustainable and equitable future. He flagged the continuing threat of terrorism and cybercrimes, advocated strengthening global digital governance and tech regulation. He also shared India's success in poverty alleviation and digital public infrastructure. Third, the bilateral engagements. On the sidelines of the key events, Prime Minister held a number of bilateral meetings. Besides the Quad partner countries, PM also met leaders of Nepal, Kuwait, Palestine, Vietnam, Armenia and Ukraine. PM Modi and President Zelensky discussed the situation in Ukraine, as well as ways to forward on the pursuing a path of peace figured prominently in their discussions. Next, the CEO's roundtable. Prime Minister Modi interacted with technology industry leaders in New York in a roundtable anchored by Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Talks focused on artificial intelligence, quantum, biotechnology, life sciences, computing, IT and communication, along with semiconductor technologies. Finally, the mega diaspora program. Indian American community accorded a memorable welcome to Prime Minister Modi at the Nassau Coliseum at Long Island. The Prime Minister recounted the remarkable rise of India and the Indian diaspora on the global stage. He also said that for the world, AI stands for artificial intelligence, but he believes it also represents the America-India spirit. So those were some of the key takeaways of Prime Minister Modi's historic visit to the United States. Shubhendu Ghosh for DD India in New York.
And joining me from New York City are my colleagues Amritpal Singh and Shubhendu Ghosh. Shubhendu, how would you sum up the Prime Minister's 3-day visit to the US? Take it away.
Ramesh, this is just past, just going to be noon in New York. We're coming to you from the iconic Brooklyn Bridge. Just as the bridge represents connectivity and people coming together in a similar fashion. Prime Minister's visit of the United States can be seen the manner in which connectivity was promoted in various domains: strategic connectivity, connectivity in the domain of technology, connectivity as far as India and the Indian diaspora are concerned. In the Quad Summit, we saw the manner in which strategic partnership was taken forward from the traditional security partnership in the domain of health, in the domain of Quad at Sea initiative, and much more. The four nations are going to be working together for the peace, prosperity, and the openness of the Indo-Pacific region. We look at the Prime Minister's engagement with the top industry leaders. We see the manner in which technology had been a driving force in this visit of the Prime Minister, and emerging technologies, critical technologies, cooperation in that, investment in India on those themes were the themes taken forward. And finally, as far as the Indian diaspora is concerned, in Prime Minister's message, if we recollect, a celebration of the achievements of India and the Indian diaspora, a new India that has emerged, India that is self-confident, that has come of age on the global stage, a nation that is not seeking opportunity but is the land of opportunity. It's inviting the world to come join it in the development journey. Some of the broad areas, and of course finally it was the time for Prime Minister's address at the United Nations, the summit of the future. Amritpal, you were closely observing the developments at the United Nations. What did you see as the central message in Prime Minister's intervention?
The Prime Minister, Shubhendu, touched on a lot of things, but I think the central message of the Prime Minister was that global action must match global ambition. Now, the Summit of the Future, Ramesh, as the Secretary General said, was trying to infuse new multilateralism into the system, into the global governance architecture. And the Prime Minister said, well, you can talk about climate change, you can talk about ecology, you can talk about the future of humanity, you can talk about all these big things, but it has to match action. Your ambition has to be matched by action, and the time to act is now. Unless we urgently act, we give a doomed future to our future generations. So I think that was the central message. But apart from that, when Shubhendu spoke about sustainable development, he said, look, sustainable development is possible with a human-centric approach. You can take care of the climate, you can move away from fossil fuels, yet lift 250 million people out of poverty as India has done. He said, you can make the world more inclusive by bringing in the have-nots. He gave the example of how the African Union was brought into the G20 under India's leadership. So he said that to stay relevant, you have to reform. Reform is relevant. So therefore, pitching for reform of multilateral institutions, and then again warning the world there is the real threat of terrorism moving into the cyber space, into maritime domain. So you need to watch out for that. And he's also offered that India is ready to share its experiences, its resources, like the DPI, with not just the global south, but the entire world. So I think that was the message.
Right. Amrit, also, if we reflect on the manner in which he spoke about the ongoing conflicts raging out across the world, and he said the solutions cannot be found on the battleground. That message must resonate, given that the attention of the world is on the manner in which conflicts like what is going on in Ukraine, in Gaza, or even Sudan, progresses in the years ahead, days ahead.
Absolutely. The message was very clear. India's long-standing stand that the way forward is on the table, not on the battleground.
Right. So those were some of the key takeaways, Ramesh, as far as Prime Minister's address is concerned. Of course, there are many nuanced points that we must be engaging with in the days ahead to understand the full impact of Prime Minister's visit, but those are some of the highlights.
Right. Shubhendu Ghosh and Amritpal Singh in New York. Thank you for that update. Appreciate it. And still to come on DD India Newshour. An expert take on political developments in Sri Lanka and the implications for India and the world. Court dismisses Karnataka Chief Minister Siddaramaia's petition in the Mysuru Urban Development Authority scam. And the Indian Navy's stealth frigate INS Talwar reaches Mombasa in Kenya on a goodwill visit.
geopolitics and trade deals, economic challenges amid development, hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India. Geopolitics and trade deals, economic challenges amid development, hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome to Lakshadweep, the land of 100,000 islands, the aquatic wonderland of India, an archipelago of spectacular marine gems.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Sri Lanka's new leftist president Anura Kumara Dissanayake has promised change in a country that is emerging from its worst economic crisis in more than 7 decades. He has to woo Parliament, where his party has just 3 seats, to pass a budget under the terms of a $2.9 billion bailout from the International Monetary Fund.
Sri Lanka's new president Anura Kumara Dissanayake on Tuesday named Professor Harini Amarasureya as the new Prime Minister of the Indian Ocean Island nation. 54-year-old Professor Amarasureya is a first-time lawmaker of the National People's Power Party. She's the 3rd woman to be appointed to the post. She has a doctorate in social anthropology from the University of Edinburgh. She became a lawmaker in 2020. Sri Lankans elected Dissanayake as the country's new president, giving the Marxist-leaning politician a key role in deciding the future of reforms in the debt-ridden nation that is slowly emerging from a crushing financial crisis. Dissanayake will have to ensure that the economy returns to sustainable and inclusive growth, reassure local and international markets, attract investors, and help a quarter of the 22 million population climb out of poverty. Dissanayake has said that he will have discussions with the IMF to adjust their program and reduce taxes and free up public revenue for tax relief and investment. He has pledged to remove VAT on some health, education and food items. But the measures could affect fiscal deficit targets set under the IMF deal. Dissanayake has promised to revamp state companies to make them more profitable, create 20,000 new teaching jobs and create more opportunities in key sectors such as tourism. He's also pledged to expand the existing welfare schemes. Colombo has sought to balance ties with neighbour India and with China. Dissanayake has expressed his intention to continue working with them and foster economic ties to boost growth. Bhavani Fonseca, a constitutional lawyer and human rights activist in Colombo, says Dissanayake will likely take pragmatic approach as he takes office during a challenging time for the country.
International community is looking to this new president as to how he governs, what is his foreign policy, but considering the economic crisis, considering we are dependent on international assistance, I can't see the MPP and the president being able to take sides. So he'll be taking a very pragmatic approach, at least for the next couple of months.
But questions remain over how Dissanayake will fulfill the promises outlined in his manifesto plans.
I'm cautiously optimistic that the president and those around him have heard the loud calls of the people, the call for a system change. Whether they're able to deliver, considering the multiple challenges before them, is the big question.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has congratulated President Dissanayake on his win. India's High Commissioner Santosh Jha was the first foreign envoy to call on the new president in Colombo. Bureau Report, DD India.
And joining me from Colombo is my colleague Ahmed Moeen Faruqi. How does President Dissanayake propose to stabilize the economy? Did he give an indication of what he intends to do either during the campaign or in his manifesto?
Ramesh, good evening and a very good evening to all our viewers. Yes, you see, President Dissanayake, when he was campaigning actively throughout the country, he was talking about various reforms he's intending to go ahead with in handling the economic crisis. If I can be allowed to talk about it in terms of three primary areas. Firstly, he talked about reform in terms of the IMF deal. He talked about reworking certain parameters under the IMF deal and renegotiate with the international financing institution. And he also talked about certain reforms in terms of the taxes which are imposed under it. The second thing which he was talking about was in terms of how it has impacted the common man in terms of reducing the prices of fuel as well as the electricity tariffs and various other charges which the government imposes. Thirdly, if I have to look at it in a long-term perspective, he has also talked about building the human capital and thereby affecting a systems change in terms of generating more income for the country through a better kind of evolving of the industry itself. So there are these kinds of strategies which he has made, but the primary thing which has talked about is a systems change in which he talks about removing inefficiencies, removing corruption, and bringing in more transparency and use of technology. That is where it is, Ramesh.
And before we let you go, what can you tell us about the new cabinet and allocation of portfolios?
Ramesh, you see, it's a very, very small cabinet. It's a cabinet of 3 members, which includes the president himself. There are only 3 members, although there's a 4th parliamentarian who is yet to be administered the oath in the parliament, as well as yet to be sworn in as a cabinet minister. If we talk about the portfolios which are there with the president, he has kept the core areas like defense, finance, energy, and agriculture. These are the areas where he feels like the government has to pay more attention. The Prime Minister has been assigned portfolios which are more so the social sector areas. They include education, healthcare, women, child, youth affairs and sports, also public administration, local government, justice ministry, and various others, including commerce and food security. And the other minister, Vijita Herath, he has been given other set of ministries which include foreign affairs as well as Buddha Sasana, religious affairs, cultural affairs, and so on and so forth. Yet we are not yet clear as to how they would work further, although there are 15 new secretaries who have been assigned to these ministries. Probably they will be utilizing their help in handling the work, day-to-day work of all these ministries till a new parliament is, elected and comes into force. Ramesh.
All right, we'll leave it there. Ahmed Moeen Faruqi in Colombo. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, joining me now in the studio is Ambassador Yashvardhan Sinha. He's a former Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka and the United Kingdom. Ambassador Sinha, welcome to DD India Newshour. Now, what can you tell us about Anurag Kumara Dissanayake, the man, and his politics?
Well, it's a very interesting past that he has. He is a veteran leader of the JVP, Janata Vimukti Peramuna. But he took over the leadership of the party, I think, about 2008, if I'm not mistaken. And he has been a member of parliament, including, he's also been a minister, briefly, a minister for agriculture in President Chandrika Kumaratunga's tenure. So he is experienced. Of course, the party that he represents, the JVP, has had a very interesting past, as you're perhaps aware. They led an armed insurrection against the Sri Lankan state in 1971 and then in 1987-89. But from all accounts, AKD, as he's called, is a changed person. He is obviously more moderate now. His statements are more moderate. And for whatever little we saw when he had come to India in February, I think it'd be interesting to see how he approaches foreign relations. And of course, the biggest item on his agenda is the economy and how he renegotiates with the IMF.
We've spoken about the man himself. What about his party? Now, what can you tell us about Dissanayke's Janata Vimukti Peramona, the JVP party, its ideological moorings, and what does the JVP actually stand for?
So the JVP is the Marxist-Leninist party. Its ideology is Marxist-Leninist, but it has evolved over the years.
Okay.
And it was a revolutionary party. It indulged in violence, in armed insurrection, but it is now very much part of the mainstream. It has taken part in elections. It didn't fare too well. As you heard, there were just 3 MPs in the outgoing or in the current parliament right now. And he contested the elections in 2019 against Gotabaya Rajapaksa and didn't do very well. So they have been in active politics, but they represent the Sinhala Buddhist constituency, which the Rajapaksas also represented, but they are left-leaning, far more left-leaning than what the SLFP, the original SLFP and the SLPP are today.
Balsina, women account for more than 50% of the electorate in Sri Lanka. During the campaign, a lot of talk about how there was no woman candidate running for president. Now, by appointing a woman prime minister, do you think Sri Lanka and Dissanayake both have redeemed themselves to a fair degree?
I think the women generally are well represented, not necessarily in parliament or in politics, but the status of women in Sri Lanka is very good. And of course, you've had Prime Minister Sri Mamo Bandaranayake as one of the first Prime Minister in this part of the world, if not in the world, I think. And you've had her daughter Chandrika. So you've had precedents of women ministers and women prime ministers and presidents. But yes, given the very small pool that the JVP had to choose from, I think Professor Harini Amarasuriya is a very good choice. Incidentally, she's an alumnus of Hindu College, Delhi. So I think she enjoys a good reputation, and as Prime Minister, she has a very challenging task ahead of her.
Balsina, what do you make of the challenges before President Dissanayake? What will it take to steer the country out of its troubles?
Well, to quite some extent, the outgoing President Ranil Wickremesinghe, the last 2 years, has managed to stabilize the economy. He reached an agreement with the extended fund facility with the IMF for $2.9 billion. And I think to a large extent, he had put the economy back on track. It still is a long way to go. The problem is that when you implement IMF conditionalities, there are certain measures which are not necessarily very popular with the electorate, austerity measures that you take, and it hits the common man. So I think that is reflected, I guess, in the way they have fared in the elections. So I think President Dissanayake will basically try and see how he can ameliorate the conditions of the common man.
And finally, Ambassador, what will Sri Lanka's foreign policy look like under President Dissanayake?
Well, I expect that it would be a balanced foreign policy. I think there were fears that because of the ideological moorings of his party and his own ideological moorings, perhaps he would tilt towards one country to the left, etc. But I think as president, and he's indicated that he believes that India is a very important partner. He recognizes and acknowledges the assistance that we have given Sri Lanka, particularly in its time of need when no other country or institution really stepped up to the plate. We were the first responder. And when he was here in February, his statements also indicated that he wants a close relationship with India. So that is good news for us.
Indeed. On that note, Ambassador, thank you for joining us and sharing your thoughts and views with our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you for having me.
All right, now take a look at what else is making news in India. In a big setback to Karnataka Chief Minister Siddaramaiah, The court on Tuesday dismissed the petition challenging Governor Tawarchand Gehlot's approval for an investigation into alleged misuse of power in the Mysuru Urban Development Authority site allotment case. The court upheld Governor's probe order against Siddaramaiah. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh inaugurated the 41st Indian Coast Guard Commanders Conference in New Delhi on Tuesday. The annual gathering serves as a vital forum for ICG senior commanders to engage in a discussion on pressing strategic, operational and administrative matters, all framed against a backdrop of shifting geopolitical landscapes and the complexities of maritime security. The conference will conclude on the 26th of September. India's Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnav on Tuesday launched a state-of-the-art Kavach 4.0 system on the 108-kilometer-long Kota-Sawai Madhopur rail section in Rajasthan. Kavach is an automatic train protection system designed to enhance train safety by automatically applying brakes in case of driver inaction and ensuring safe operations during harsh weather conditions. Still to come on DD India Newshour. India takes new initiatives to ensure a safe digital environment for young users. And Japanese artist Yayoi Kusama's exhibition set to open in London.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is in Uzbekistan to attend the 9th annual meeting of the Board of Governors of Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, scheduled to take place from 25th to the 26th of September, besides other bilateral meetings with her counterparts from Uzbekistan, Qatar, China and the AIIB President. She was welcomed by Rakhmanova Zebinoso Pulatovna, Deputy Governor, Samarkand Region, upon arrival at Samarkand from Tashkent. Earlier, the minister interacted with an Indian student studying in Uzbekistan during her train journey from Tashkent to Samarkand. India's President Draupadi Murmu inaugurated the Assembly of the Asian Organization of Supreme Audit Institutions in New Delhi. The four-day conference will be followed by a series of discussions on the evolving role of supreme audit institutions in fostering transparency and accountability. The Assembly is witnessing the participation from more than 200 delegates representing 42 countries and international organizations, underscoring its diverse and collaborative nature. A key highlight of this year's Assembly is the assumption of the chair of the Assembly by India's Comptroller and Auditor General Girish Chandra Murmu from 2024 to 2027. Motivation to drive out tobacco from our daily life, essentially youth, is the need of the hour. Social media influencers play a pivotal role in the same. One such motivator is Gaurav Chaudhary, famously known as Technical Guruji, a man having close to 30 million followers on social media. In exclusive chat with DD India Siddharth Bharadwaj, Chaudhary, while participating in Tobacco Free Youth Campaign 2.0 in New Delhi, spoke about harmful effects of tobacco and the benefits of leaving it for a healthier and happier life.
Social media content creators were felicitated today at the Tobacco Free Youth Campaign 2.0. Today, I have with me another social media celebrity, a content creator. His name is Technical Guruji. We know him like that. Hello. But just tell us that what role social media content creators play in influencing people, influencing youth of the country to give up tobacco or don't take it at all.
If I talk about my followers, I mean, total I have around 30 million followers. Wide majority, I would say around 30%, are between the age bracket of 13 to 18. And I believe this is the age when people would be influenced to consume tobacco by some way or the other. So मुझे लगता है it's actually very important. Not just me, all the content creators, all my colleagues in this. I think we all should come forward and we all should work hands in hand with the government in a way to promote this message that yes, it's not something which is good, it is not something which is cool, and quitting is one thing, but to begin with, you should not even start.
How do you think this campaign is being fruitful, in inspiring youth to give up bad habits and choose good habits?
I think this is a great initiative by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, considering they are targeting the youth, because tobacco is one such thing wherein the habit would start early in the age, maybe in the school, maybe in the college, amongst friends. So just to promote this message that tobacco, how dangerous it is, and considering we talk about India as being one of the young countries, we need to protect our future generations. So this message is very important to be spread around, and I think it's a great initiative by the government.
So that was Technical Guruji, who's having close to 30 million followers on social media, said that tobacco is not at all cool, and he urged young generation of the country to leave it or don't start it at all. With camera person Naveen, this is Siddharth Bhardwaj reporting for DD India in New Delhi.
And just to reinforce that message, it is not cool to consume tobacco. Right, moving on, in today's digital age, cyber safety is crucial, especially for students who are more exposed to the online world than ever before. The Government of India has taken several initiatives to ensure a safe digital environment for young users. Kriti Vadhera reports from New Delhi.
One of the key programs for cyber safety awareness is the Cyber Swachhta Kendra, established under the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. This initiative provides tools to detect and prevent malicious software in devices, ensuring students and educational institutions remain secure from cyber threats.
Very soon, the people in the industry is not going to ask you for your resumes. They are going to take the profiles through the artificial intelligence. So, if you are going anywhere, to the sites that's going to be profiled, how much time you are spending doing what, that is being recorded. Also, where are you going? What places are you visiting? That's also recorded. There's so much of artificial intelligence.
Additionally, the government has launched information security education and awareness (ISEA) campaigns to promote awareness about cyber safety among students. Workshops, webinars, and online campaigns have been organized in schools and universities, focusing on topics like safe browsing, the danger of cyberbullying, and the importance of data privacy.
In today's generation, it's the hardest thing to not get lost in the cyber world. We're totally lost every single day being on social media and whatnot. And as for security, I definitely think that it's very necessary that you keep all your information private and secured. You can do this using the several controls that every app has.
There have been a lot of problems where girls have been harassed by so many different types of people on social media, where there are negative comments also being shared, which creates a very large amount of problem for people's self-esteem, and they started to feel very unsafe on social media.
Cybersecurity is extremely important for us because during this interconnected world, at the click of a button, our data can be transferred from one place to another.
I think that cyber safety is really important because I've heard that a lot of people and kids, they suicide because of cyberbullying. They being bullied. So in this case, cyber safety is very important.
The Ministry of Education, in collaboration with National Council of Educational Research and Training, has included cyber safety in the school curriculum, equipping students with the knowledge to navigate the digital world responsibly.
With numerous initiatives, the Government of India is not just enhancing the cyber awareness infrastructure in India, but at the same time is also fostering secure and more informed generation of digital citizens. With camera person Sunny Kalra, I am Kriti Vadhera reporting from New Delhi for DD India.
And now to news from the world of sport. The Indian chess contingent was warmly welcomed back home after they created history, winning 2 gold medals at the recently concluded 45th Chess Olympiad in Budapest. Take a look at the next report to know what the stars said upon their return home.
The Indian chess contingent returned to India after registering heroic performance at the 45th Chess Olympiad that concluded in Budapest. Team India created history, bagging back-to-back 2 gold medals, achieving a historic double podium finish. Speaking on the great achievement, Grandmaster D. Gukesh said that he's really happy with his performance and now his next target is the World Championship.
And I'm very happy with my performance and the team's performance.
Grandmasters R. Pragnananda and R. Vaishali were warmly welcomed by enthusiastic fans and supporters upon their arrival at the Chennai airport. Delighted Pragnananda said this achievement will now take the game to more number of people.
First time golden chess Olympiad, and we managed to do it at the same time, and it's a very proud moment for all of us.
I'm very happy to be part of the winning team in the Indian gold medal team in the Olympiad, which was held at Hungary. Both the teams have secured gold medal. It's like a historic moment.
Indian men's team captain Srinath said that everyone performed brilliantly. That includes individual performance as well.
I was the captain of the men's team, and as far as the men's team was concerned, it was a very smooth journey. We won 10 matches, we drew 1, and we won by a margin of 4 match points. Spectacular performances by all individual players as well. Gukesh and Arjun in particular, they had historic performances, all-time best performances.
India bagged 2 gold medals in Chess Olympiad, creating history and also signifying a new era of Indian chess that aims at bringing more eyeballs to the game. Sports Desk, DD India.
And before we close, a Japanese artist, Yayoi Kusama's new exhibition is set to open in London. The exhibition will showcase Kusama's installations Every Day I Pray for Love, Infinity Mirrored Room, Beauty Described by a Spherical Heart, Ladder to Heaven, and much more. The exhibition will be held from 25th September to 2nd November. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of DD India News Hub. You can get all the latest news and updates on the DD India mobile app. It's available on Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen now to download it. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran from all of us here in New Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.